Hello, volume theory is using fact treatments that are um with the defenses of fact treatment nature intersciences that are recorded with physical delusions and with criminal foreign influences relevant to the accepted value of their premise treatments. So we have quality of fact treatment nature originally and still defended intersciences individually grouped and together in relationship that can't be defended. We don't have mandated law, and they're stealing our identities. This is in relationship to where they're so it's where everyone's a liar at the same time in relationship to what forces mandated law not followed. We need to these are natures of gun crimes using how the branches were originally and still juxtaposed with a whole bunch of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, whole bunch of policing shared agreements with natures of industries that you can't share, defending us at once, but not enough jobs and a means to counter things that everyone's already in collusion true facilitated the roles uses identity of the ground. Now, so while we have mandated law not being followed, this is because we have various natures of courts at once criminally involved. They're pretending to be against that by pretending to have integrity with their treatments of Paul Manafort. All the topics in the news have ties into houses right next to where George Washington had to come to meet the French general right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, Weathersfield, Connecticut, this town, like with a Heather Hansen. Whole bunch of people tied to her recorded, confessed, and demonstrated criminally involved with media locations, streams on off course uh, locations, and stayed ways. This is how they keep each branch individually together and grouped, valuing the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts in nature sustained on each area as values needed to keep the causes of that blamed on other things other than themselves. That's needing to care about issues and pretend that to be about voting rights and stuff like that as means to pretend it's not. Because we have victim predators raised to fences of fact treatments that you can't defend in us at the same time. Free speech, I just remind. We have fake news involved with election crimes, with the FBI pretending to be against it at the same time because they maintain defenses of misprision criminality. So they're communicating what they're lying about. So they're containing everyone to either pseudo positive criminal and seditious nature theater, valuing the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts nature, blame other things other than themselves, and that having invested value, fact treatment nature relationships to everything. So in other words, this is the volume theory now is what's forced because they're not following mandated law. They're forging names and switching names, and everyone's not. This is with shadows in the law because states and areas and intercampus are all tied to them. It's not who you know when those are identities. Well, here we go. Hyper volume theory is where I'm going to make theory now that's to show that volume theory, which is I'm not going to make the premise treatments I am in hyper volume theory, but this is to force where they're not following mandated law so everyone could see it. Because now they're in other words, even I forgot his name. All the politicians, all victim predators like pretending to be about voting rights. He's a good guy. I forgot his name. He all of them, but with the voting rights. It's not about the voting rights. You have the identity of the ground. Everyone's in collusion. That's why we have a pathology of infrastructure and the extent of it all contained to roles with what was forced to maintain negative value nature progressions, acts, natures, blame other things other than themselves. Can't defend their treatments of the environment and tell about the identity of the grounds, relationship to our fact-driven nature, not by accident. That has this inter all spots specifically to maintain that. Maintained originally still. Everyone, victim, predator roles, blaming even Native Americans A through Z. Everyone blaming the real causes of negative value nature, progression to action nature. No time to blame it. In other words, enforced with justifications of forced fact treatments. Because there was no integrity of the nature of spying that is existent in this with hyper volume theory. Because, forcing out, in other words, this is also, in other words, this is how we have to, this is also, we need to make three positions of relationship to the real medicine. We have to embrace it because with a new value nature system, originally they can relax. With fact treatment nature, in other words, in relationship to where we have to fight, and it's where everyone's liars, because those fights are being forced in what is also forcing everyone to sequence shifts. Everyone forced to know and see other people and their names, forced to share fake sides of fact treatment nature as shared roles with sequence shifts. Everyone speaking through administrations since before our founders' births, now that demonstrated. They have recorded narratives with white nationalism, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, and involved with a whole bunch of people with this identity of the ground method, with sensibilities method. It's identity theft method too. Even on off the locations of stores that are shared police, foreign and domestic. Houses hurt a number of ways. But in other words, they make everyone speak through other than people that don't even know each other. They have locked into their lie progressions and rackets with various natures of courts and various natures of police forms, with roles with what originally and still is the method that keeps each age of fact treatment nature with a stolen identity, with not one person defending integrity of logic's actual protracted integrity. Fake forgiveness is because of this organized crime method that religions are about, is about how they're using the identity of the ground's relationship to our fact treatment nature, how we are a nature of volume. Free speech. They have offensive recorded foreign and domestic, a whole bunch of nations juxtaposed with justice departments, with our nation's, their nation's equivalent of our Washington, D.C. tied to the Trade Center, tied to value treatments with things like mental and medications and things like that. Now, see, those are involved with families long and locations long criminally used by foreign and domestic, the same way they're exploiting their identity, states and areas on top of individual value progressions are criminally foreign influenced, self-value that way, breaching screens and tools with for example, even overtly with the way they do the identity thefts of our founders. See, then they're using knowledge. Who knows the most facts to keep that what James Madison did, which it was only, you have to understand that how he preempted, how they had to hide the roles with what he did, preempting the phases they were keeping everyone locked into with agreements, but those are agreements where each position of the human fact treatment nature, even kings, had extortion upon them distinctly sickly, specifically to maintain everyone sickly, distinctly and non-distinctly roles, and natures justifications of their fact treatment, blaming other things, others, and selves. Being liars and or conformed were the people that are calling other people's and keeping other people liars, especially little kids. They're making little kids lie because of originally through time recorded the same families, interbranch and principles tied to them, tied to policing of each age of fact treatment nature. You have to make professionals make sure they have people that teach things right. See, but you don't exploit the truths of that. You don't make that be mean more than it is. They didn't have integrity originally and still, and that's part of the most essential part of American history, which is about the organized crime method, the geopolitical crime method, since before modern nations, intercampuses. How can you teach about? How could you teach about and know to defend the republic for which you stand as an ancient republic? We always with with hypervolume theory is where they're not following mandated law to prove this is true. They're forcing only the contained. In other words, it's all right to look from experts, but we had obligations originally and still to demonstrate correlation nature's identity. It's obfuscations. Those are the it's hostage. It's identity theft slash S. The topic of everything, inseparable from everything, as one value is. Vaccines, the sciences were revealed as value, as a nature of sophistication that was before criminal foreign influences. So the phenomenon of invention, the phenomenon of the pathology of craziness we know from the history, that was set up then for us now to stay roles defending identities of fact treatment nature, way worse than impractical, insidiously to each spot. How this is maintained, all roles motivated to as such. But to demonstrate, you have to allow mandated law. See, but the sequence shifts are part of it, because sequence value is simultaneous nature, because the identity of actual reality always at once is value within as simultaneous nature that will never change, and that's the identity that is its complete nature, of relationship to itself, where it has a gaining nature of volume, not just a physical nature of value, and only the extent of this is debatable, but it's being debated offensively with physical delusions, inter-science value, to get away with it, with criminal foreign influence into sciences to get away with it, because this is where and how logic is about where the simultaneous nature, and the simultaneous nature, whatever you want to call it. We have, but it's why we have. In fact, it's why we have languages individually grouped and together as the nature of volume, the same way people are individually grouped and together. Always grouped too, age, area. This is not only to be this is to show us the difference, not only because there's temporary slash lasting. That system is onto its own nature of volume, which is simultaneously the way three natures of volume that are in our range of the complete nature's complete relationship to itself. The way they have this relationship to itself. The rest of nature has no criminal foreign influences. States and areas of modern nations, intercampuses, Campus Marcius. That's not just the name of a park in Detroit. No, involved with the industries where, see, each industry is a victim. The industry itself, all grouped in it, and every single individual. And everyone not in it is too. So they have they have their quality of fact sheeping nature about agreements with various natures of industries, and they're all abridged. They can't, that's just life. You know what I mean? Because people give up before they go into an industry. Otherwise, you have to do it. Ignoring what confesses the its roles with modern, still with overt criminal enterprises and with the branches and criminally using them at the same time, and with the zoning laws and the pathology of that self-value that was associated with our founders' slavery. Now, if someone tries to talk about this, you could see then, offensively, people are valuing our stolen history in our faces. In other words, Marbury versus Madison means justice, real justice must satisfy all appearance of real justice. In other words, we're not supposed to have standing perjury rackets. Valuing being nice because they're making laws nicer for people because it was, in other words, they're pretending people are criminal just because they're brought in. And they've been doing that. And see, they had to hide live aggressions, value mistreatments with everything with that. Overall, grouped and at once. All types of experts, types of courts, one-way reports. That was built then and now to exploit they're not just there, to exploit them and keep them locked, self-valued, with live progressions from everything like that. This is a trap, modern cities, designed to keep all the victim predators awes and or blaming the wrong things others themselves for it. Forcing states and areas, forcing never let free speech unless they're going to be theater roles. As liars pretending others are liars. And valuing and getting away with it because how the branches are kept criminally foreign influence with all private tied to them roles with what is intercampuses facilitated. Each age of fact treatment nature made to awareness simultaneously of this sickly distinctly, but simultaneously to keep how non-distinctly. This is a breaching organized crime method that took modern nations themselves into and as identities that exploits what hypervolume value theory is going to force demonstration of, because you have to force the mandated law, because originally and still they weren't doing it. The courts would make you stand before them. The interbranch would make you stand before the courts, first having had roles with what really happens bad that's sustained. First, forcing people to have no free speech, to defend ourselves calmly. They even offensively pretend we don't speak calmly. So then when to maintain getting away with uses of context where we have to raise our voice, and then they can say we're being bad about behavior in relationships to issues that they have crimes with areas so then they could get off in courts where then one-way reports. In other words, they have laws that it's true that they're supposed to believe the police over the people that are brought in, innocent or guilty. You know what I'm saying? See, but they're not supposed to be doing that to get over on innocent people. You see, they're not supposed to be doing that to hide their roles with people who end up at being guilty of things when they had roles with it, and how they had roles with it. See, this uses the identity of the ground. This uses how everyone speaks through others. So who you know. They never had integrity. This is what made their motivations and roles are experts against nations, countering things, them at the same time countering those counters. Because the identity of relationship to itself, here or there, sees suits and ties. They knew through politics, they have politics, they have physical delusions, communism, capitalism, all its opinions. It's not opinion, follow mandated law. Mandated law has a connection to what is positive. Mandated law has a connection to passions that never are let free speech, with sequence truth, with inherent active and progressive truth, and not denying exceptions. We have exceptions maintain self-value through time, for all that with and as recorded criminally engineered and maintain modern nations justice, modern nations each branch in relationship to the body of positive, which is identity nature's course, which is logic's course. Various natures of courts are recorded with physical delusions, criminal foreign influences already valued. They're not letting report because they have crime methods recorded, not just formally, but with areas, with their uses of campuses. This is what forgiveness is about. Because you can't, that's how they maintained motivated to stay rules with a whole bunch of nations individually grouped and together. Keeping the real causes of negative value, nature, progressions, acts, natures, blamed on other things, other stuff. This keeps overt criminal enterprises needing to hide the same finite sequence shift, identity theft, crime acts, and illusions. Sequence shifts, identity, natures of identity theft that they have, where they have standing each value treatment. How many undercover we have foreign and domestic? You can't hide that and tell our American history. You can't hide that and tell their history there. That's tied to this worse than negotiated with terrorism, tied to these shootings. They're not letting reported, they're keeping opinionators, election crime roles and tools with our agencies, all types of jobs, time treatments, each position of time treatment, that was already, they knew the devil and organized crime method. I'm not asking faith. I'm forced, in other words, because in other words, they're making overall allegations about people on a mass scale and through generations. See, they put that name in there, Tricky Dick. These are people that then pretend, oh, that's that and then they're smiling sometimes about the sickest things. Then sometimes they're not. See, because these are people that are crime acts with fake news because they have the right to, because police forms tell them they do. But they're quoting laws. Their private police tell them they can get away with things, but they know that other types of laws and stuff that are criminally involved. But they're pretending. How can we read their minds? Because they have criminal uses of the ground with sequence shifts, with their evidence perception. That's in the background. And they stole my identity, attached me to fake relationships to doctors through time. As a kid, they through the news. They faked, and this is them coaching with the branches of government and with WFSB, Fox Connecticut News, New Britain Herald, all kinds of people involved with on off the campuses of each age connected a crime method that keeps all our titles criminally foreign influence use of identity, which is a trinity. This is hyper volume theory regarding how and why they're so insidiously forging names, switching names, and lying when people come into courts. They have crime methods, one way reports. Originally, and still, how they would pretend to be against witch trials. They pretend to be against about integrity when they're dealing with color treatments, and with that phrase, the color of the law. They're recorded with tactically, criminally, foreign influenced educations and on off campuses in layers sustained victim reactions to what forces reactions, and then to learn, and then counter the reactions with how they're making people roles, valuing identity thefts of others, valuing being insidiously sick crime weapons of and breaching screen states and areas, database click relationships, identity of the ground relationships. And now this is facilitated, and it was originally and still facilitated with all made to identity as the ground rolled, so they stayed valuing blamed on other things others themselves. Treatments of positive, everyone not realizing that that's the semi-ancient thing, that religions are about this. Religions are also about how they are being forced to roles. They want themselves liberated with our free speech. They're pretending to be against racism offensively to maintain that victim predator roles. Type treatments. Offensively, you can't defend that. In free speech, they're not even letting free speech demonstrate identity of the ground to group relationships nuts. Sensibilities being lied to by how and through it is recorded that directors are involved criminally foreign influenced. Can't defend interbranch, individually grouped it together. They can't defend what they pretend is science in relationship to the identity of what positive is about. That's one part about it, knowing about the electrical engineering. That's one part about it, knowing about the algorithm of a place, of a nature of an industry in relationship to a computers and online algorithm with variables, and what does in relationship to what doesn't change, individually grouped and together. See, but those are standing value treatments in what is originally and still pseudo positive treatments. That's only part of it. See, this trinity is a pattern with cells. There are proofs that human cells, I never saw them under a microscope, but I've seen plant cells under a microscope with cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall. That trinity is in demonstration to us because those cell walls share body of this body of the value discernment system that English is revealed to teach. It is self-generating. See, but it is self-generating as Leith of Hadith, when as standing criminal and citizen nature, force-based nature transfer. Nature is one identity's identity of relationship to itself. See, but we're not having this. We're not having free speech to have mandated law followed per how they invested everyone to victim predator roles. How they invested the identity of the executive branch of each state and area. How they invested the identity of all families and positions of political figures, as the congressional branch, which and how they invested the judicial branch and their offices and the state prison offices all tied to them, and campuses. They maintain them roles with a crime method recorded, which is exploiting our identity, the identity of relationship to the ground, as the sequence nature, and they're exploiting the sequence nature because it's also a simultaneous nature that is what is causing, is forcing complete science is value, nature, traceable. See, science is this is science other. These sciences, value treatments with the markets, those are agreed to stay pseudo-positive roles. Left abridged constitution. We're countering what best we could because but everyone's not by accident is blaming other things, others, and selves for the real causes of that from semi-ancient times. So now the proofs of this are recorded, but we don't have free speech. And the reason we don't have free speech is tied to how they keep the identities of each branch needed to highlight progressions that facilitated needed overall and that maintained finite active needed. Their roles valuing nature, a whole bunch of natures of identity theft roles against. This is why this is also recorded consciously, keeping each branch using value treatments like the word woman, like the word girl, like the word boy or man, using it criminally, and then used criminally because then they have to hide line progressions as just standing positions with no integrity originally and still recorded. Mandated law reveals this. The branches individually grouped in together are criminally acting, writing things, pretending things into databases through time when in relationship to everything bad happening. And they're maintained victim predators only capable. They're also to persuaded though. Criminally foreign influence states leaders originally still. This is greatly tied to our zoning laws originally still recorded self-value. Not only do all the topics in the news have ties, they have ties to people that have crime rolls recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with houses on Church Street and then the corner there, which is right where George Washington had to come to his sleep when he meant to come to meet with a French general right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, having to leave slavery overt in the North, right between New York and Boston, though. And in with these places, as a fact, cheaping nature reckon differences sickly distinctly, specifically to keep long term, all contained, fake sides of correlation nature. This is Trinity theory as well. This is demonstrated how it's recorded how they're keeping each type of religion in collusion with states and areas branches, formal fact cheaping natures, database relationship clicks, needed to hide lie progressions, needed to value the identity thefts of other people, needed to value where and how the branches originally still have straight lie progression crime racket roles with all areas juxtaposed with criminal with physical delusions, recorded juxtaposed with mixed natures and motivations for election crime rules, voting crime rules, that nature's valuing identity of the ground, exploited. This is in relationship not only to where we are Trinity, but how this Trinity is every value has two more values tied to it, distinctly and non-distinctly. English was revealed to teach this. See, but you have to free my identity because these are offensive, in nature of industry crimes. Because they need the sensibilities where you have to deal with people. They need to lie about our behavior. They can get away with it by sustaining lies about people in the background while they're preventing mandated law interbranch because they need to, because various natures of courts, their state judicial branch offices, and their identities themselves, and the identity of each branch they pretended had integrity criminally. That's recorded originally and still. That's what logic demonstrates. There are also crimes preventing people offensively each age of fact treatment nature, forcing them conformed to as tools, hiding the standing life progression cover up natures actually recorded of each single person. This is also how we have a whole bunch of natures that are keeping of nations that are defenses of identities, each one individually grouped in together, the same identity of negative value nature progression. Reality needs us to understand, is demonstrating we need to understand that and how and why identity nature is another nature of sequence. Is three natures of sequence at once. And how that is at once because it is five natures of sequence at once. One of those always bigger and always smaller than, and for example, that's what makes it instantaneous as the cause of the magnitude that reveals evolution's fruits and gifts per science in volume theory. And it reveals the gifts of Santa per hypervolume theory. English was revealed by a nature of sciences as the human species valuing how we are the nature of volume and how its relationship to itself. A nature of spine that is even, in other words, the cell itself, not only is it a semi-nature to whatever part of the body it's of and as, and not only to our complete identity, not only the complete identity of our complete nature species, not only to its complete identity of relationship to nature here, but to the value of one identity's identity of relationship to itself as these five semi-natures of itself that are self-generating. How self-generating? In relationship to what causes positive or negative value nature progressions, acts and natures. And to be able to explain that, we need free speech. We need to have our identities not stolen. We need to have people's names not quantified against us. This makes people need, they say, oh, this person's a rat, something like that. That implies we know these people. When there are exceptions, that implies we know them in context that they need to pretend real fast in courts criminally. That's recorded. And it's juxtaposed with physical delusions. See, this is what forgiveness was for. They built what can only blame, but even if we stacked in certain areas where they would agree to it, we have no population problems. Where, for example, where the population is claimed the problems because we have fact treatment nature problem. We have artistic reaction to the organized crime method using the grounds values tied to our quality of fact treatment nature volume. Maintain forced roles as a liar pretending other, or you're not going to work. And they're going to steal from you. Don't have these psychologists pretend that. And I never had a conversation with a psychologist in my life who used the word delusion with me, for example, because they're forging names, switching names, stealing identities with people. There are quotes in our fake news clicks with all natures of crimes, even with child offenders and drugs, with the fake news, identity thefts, crimes with doctors, with kids, tied to courts, crimes with the courts, with doctors attaching themselves all different roles, with police forms, putting fake things in databases. Logic is discourse here. I'm not a doctor. I'm going to show you their physical delusions recorded with the criminal foreign influences. We're going to examine uses of misprision criminality, standing manifest identity of value as a nature of volume, relationship to the ground, how maintain criminally foreign influence, standing criminal insidiousness natures, all two roles. For example, with the color treatments. Color of the law, regardless of what that means it means it's inseparable from its meaning where and how are organized crime countering bodies worse than fail to explain, to even let understood. That they stay valuing not let understood. Our American history, it's real. All it is real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. Don't fake it, especially as perjury rackets. That's what we have originally and still. They're hiding their life progressions because they're built with groups. They're built with on off campuses, the identity of the grounds, and streams in relationship to value treatments through campuses and through branches, or religion and still in layers with the sensibilities, all engineered to motivations, nature's needs. See, enforced. This is also how they're using the religious figures. In other words, if you say it this way, you're going to get this many years. If you say it this way, you're going to get this many years. You see what I'm saying? Those are courts individually grouped together crime acts roles with the child sex offenders, including with women, which demonstrates it's not their motivations for such are intercampuses tied. Recorded, if you follow what's actually recorded. They're recording offensively, pretending things recorded each age because they already have states and areas criminally foreign influence, victim predator. Forgiveness is to have the science's voice, free speech. They're stealing our identities, the news. Fox Connecticut News is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by a whole bunch of police. So you're not supposed to confess and record and demonstrate that foreign domestic police use downtown locations, policings of clubs, on off state stream of campuses for identity theft crimes, for database crime roles, for evidences crime roles. Already they kept and keep streams into courts and with people going to jail in relationship to their crime act roles with crime methods recorded bonding on and off campuses. Sammy Vega, see him with the Puerto Rican flag, charged. See, these are uses of Positive's real identity as it's conformed to database crime roles. Sammy Vega's also crime acts roles facilitated with his family as victims, but as victim predators per the interbranch with CCSU, with criminal justice, with interbranch all the way, all levels of politicians, of military, foreign and domestic, on and off these campuses, uses of the sensibilities of deans, crime methods and motivations and needs and means to get away with it, and shadows of criminality that were originally and still left self-valued. That's why there are crime acts roles with real body dumping spots, places associated with legitimate body burial and disposal spots. I would say disposal, I'll say. Relieving spots. See, but we have imposing. We have originally and still each identity of job, each identity of the grounds, value treatments. Maintained as one that is pollution to what is instantaneously the value of each identity of the ground. To everyone and as everyone. We're ourselves in the same body of value that is identity nature's course, for real. Every punk it jumps up to fight for type rights, but not one originally and still allows free speech to demonstrate how they force type rights. To not let our culture as identity, nature, Trinity have its voice. These are needs to keep the states and areas entrenched fake sensibilities, care as type of identities of religions with physical delusions, criminal foreign influences, because that's used by people with logic that are criminally foreign influences with physical delusions, are experts on it. Experts are this way maintained facilitated to motivated to lie about and to hide not and value obfuscated how misprision criminality and the identities of the branches and of the groups like FBI, like the CIA. They're recorded, confessed, involved with child offenders, with identity thefts. I know, and with people associated with and as federal criminal co-defendants of former director of the FBI in a tied case that they used other courts and their police forms and their fact-sheeting nature who had already been a facilitated to crime acts role since before that, with identity of the ground uses, with uses of the sensibilities of all the science people, doctors, and types of things, foreign and domestic, associated with DACA, where they have the identity, the extent of the identity the scientists share, force value. They have a force value tactically wrong. They're keeping offensively, actively, and progressively, inherently, actively, progressively. They're keeping sequential roles, maintaining self-value. Crime acts with investigators and with investigators of investigators maintain criminal foreign influence uses of identity the ground, other people's identities, of their uses of online sensibilities, with their algorithms, with their notions of how that's tied to how they learn this at campuses. This is industry, this is how all there's many campuses, not by accident. Our nature, hyper volume theory, is our nature, even though the space right here is invisible, it is still discernibly with an identity and an identity of relationship to itself. And within as the one that made space generate matter in the first place. And that's as what is smaller than what is active, and what is bigger than what is active, and as what, while being the value of what is active, as us. We we have we all need clean water to know the identity of positive. But see, we have positive care with care for identities of ground to fact cheaping nature value that can't defend that in themselves from anyone with simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive truth, always not exploiting and having and valuing exploited exceptions to the truth. And juxtaposed with that, mixed lies and truths, and identity thefts and sequence shifts. We have sequence shifts roles in a method that keeps quantitatively names imposed upon what each age of fact sheet needs to tell on. Because there are people who are offensively rats who are also used criminally to get people to call them rats. Because they're also used for identity thefts and for evidences, crimes, and crime roles with the method natures of crimes are with the databases with each school. Are with the court stacking fake recorded things with the police forms, individually and together, criminally foreign influenced. Valuing that having been done with the campuses, with it having been exploited off campus. So people would take collusion with valuing what is nonsense, but from the background. The branches are maintained with a whole bunch of nations of overt criminal enterprises, undercover other nations, their family members, sustain uses of this on off campuses. Houses also on off, and businesses on off, the businesses locations where they have the shared policing involved. They have more people recorded, invest, and confessed involved with Stop and Shop and on off business locations with Town Line Drive, and all the way tied to Joseph Lieberman and his uses and roles with the criminal justice and the interdepartmental people at Central Connecticut State University and at the other campuses, ones I didn't even go to criminally involved. Ones I did too. See, but they're keeping them criminally involved from off campuses. They're using the identities of the campuses by doing it through the people into departments in the nature of conversations maintained, restricted from being true. In other words, they're isolated. They're in a different phase of the database identity of ground role with the organized crime method that is keeping each age of identity shown acting that's being used criminally. Everyone missed it because they're all valuing roles. That's just little kids things. That's not just little kids things. That's those are illusions and crime action methods with areas tied to ones that don't that made them value not pretend they needed to value to pretend not to realize the roles recorded anyway, with all kinds of natures of criminal uses of even the identity of each area. Hartford was engineered, the suburbs of modern nations, houses in Russia, in America, they were engineered by an organized crime method that was entrenched there and here since before our founders were born. It was entrenched, already forcing semi-ancient nations to unity with nations individually grouped and together sick. And all roles with that to the states and areas of modern nations, which then became modern nations, defending what nature demonstrates in semi-ancient times is criminally foreign influenced human fact treatment nature science process. This is logic's real course, free speech and identity. The branches of government are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated sickly, offensively, consciously, pretending to be against prejudice, pretending to be against white nationalism. For example, multi-front, for this is at the same time, the same way they're motivated to crime acts roles with ISIS, to prevent and keep obfuscated the organized crime conversation about our nature's identity, about its self-generation, actual quality of fact treatment nature true, and with sequence true, and without our identity stolen, forced to entertain recorded physical delusions into sciences, and then pretend use of identity. They're pretending we should sue to have to not be tortured, to not have all our identity stolen and stuff like that. These are people that have been using all natures of pseudo medicine and all natures of database crime rackets, self-valued on mass scale to keep opinion natures rolled, because that's how they're getting paid. Sociology, psychology, counselors. They're all recorded criminally foreign influence sciences, delusions raw. Now this is hyper volume value theory, because they're preventing mandated law. And we're going to force it, and this is a method of forcing them to debate what they can't debate without revealing their quality of fact treatment nature, like the only ones ever heard. Like, in other words, people that say they're atheism, they're recorded to the defense of identities as a group nature or volume. There's a fake sides with the people that are offensively pretending to care about religion for their uses of identity. Say, oh, we need this for ourselves. Of course, you need it because you're not to say that. No, in other words, these are preventing the identity of the growth. These are standing criminal insidiousness natures. They're preventing free speech. These are identity theft rackets. Defenses of identities offensively maintained to because people with fact treatment nature racket need roles, blaming the real cause of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, intercampuses with areas with shootings, For example, other things others themselves. These are the same people associated with criminal uses of the sickest crimes that happen less often in the suburbs, but they're tied. They're sustaining this outcome, and everyone's rolls with their opinions. And you guys won't let this demonstrated because you're not following mandated law. And then when people see that, they make convictions about other people. They're making things up. And they say this person's narcissistic. This person's got bad behavior. Look, he's raising his voice. The media is recorded doing that criminally with sequence shifts to keep it from being the sequence shifts from being told on. They're stealing our identities. They're facilitating the crime act's role, stealing our property, preventing us from countering the identity thefts against us, our kids, criminal uses of databases, the criminal uses of sensibilities on people from on and off campuses and related through time. Criminal uses, this is how what they really need, so insidiously keeps the overt criminal enterprises, needing to hide the same finite, active, sequence shifts, progressive lies with the branches. Whole bunch of people with a lion's den. Sorry, guys, it's not your guys' fault. In other words, with the Sandy Hook people, and with doctors, foreign and domestic, with Middletown, on and off, other gyms, other boxing gyms associated with Sammy Vega. So you know how he goes associated with the schools and with the theme mega education with a lawyer. And I'll see these are people associated, recorded, everyone's speaking through other people. He's recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, involved with various natures of courts and people from the former director of the FBI, all the way Robert Luskin, associated with him criminally on and off a campus in my area with people further tied to crimes with fake news and with Confederate flag themed crimes. Confederate flag themed people, crimes with a principal child offender and other men and women into branch roles, forcing abuses of kids, lies through kids with overt criminal enterprises. There's Joshua Julian, also from my school, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated he's involved with people with crimes on and off the media locations. They're in database crime roles. They're using people pretending they're about. These are identity crime roles, identity theft crime roles. These are people making sick, vicious opinions against others, forcing that nature of volume, forcing people to speak with other people's names, and then pretending to be against that. They're using the online platforms, pretending they're about their own, so they want a certain nature of behavior. This has been worse than monopoly, worse than their roles with identity thefts, with natures of juxtaposed motivations, with identity, with thefts, with database crimes, identity of the ground, relationship to our communications. Facebook used for election crimes already. These are people with Washington, D.C. roles with mayors. They have each age of fact-cheating nature, hurt by what is a fake, insidious positive. Criminal insidious natures of positive. Recorded defending misprision identities. And that instantaneously. Worse and worse identity of negative value nature progression. It's not because of the environment, it's because nature. Our identity of relationship to nature has means. We have cars now. We didn't have cars when they forced this pathology of infrastructure. So on Church Street in Old Wethersfield, there are a number of houses and family members, a whole bunch of brothers and sisters, doctors, and police forms involved with judges retired and standing, criminally with locations next to the web house, with methods and natures of crime, with databases, all natures of crime juxtaposed. As people with titles, private and other, all juxtaposed, you can't defend that and us at the same time. We have shared policing of prisons, of training them, associated with the people associated with Sammy Vega, with understanding undercover positions in relationship to criminal. This is a child abuse method, an elderly abuse method, area abuse method, identity of the ground abuse method. Every single person. This exploits every family. It doesn't matter if they keep this each use of time indifferent to the uses of experts that are criminal, uses of the value of titles that are offensively dishonest and criminal, forcing that not let demonstrated, forcing mandated law not let followed, because they're originally and still criminally foreign influence. So we have to have the. So we can't have. So you see how that then they make them defend. They can't defend. The same way they did that. This is the source isn't a branch of the media. Per the media, they're also recorded and confessed and demonstrated using terms like crime, pretending that because people were brought into courts that they believe that means what it doesn't, because they're recorded forcing sustained criminal uses on off campuses, online, interbranch with that. They've been these are wire crime rolls, mail crime rolls with the people supposed to be against that. These are because they keep them needed to hide live progressions with identity of the ground, with identity of value treatments with each age of fact treatment nature. Originally and still, they need to keep everyone valuing that. And they do it effectively. This is methods and motivations for terror because they don't want anyone to hear their. Some nations can't defend themselves, but through agreements, demonstrably, that's what, in other words, like Syria and stuff like that. How many nations are with psychology that are with all kinds of crimes and motivations and roles with facilitating them and knowing they're going to get away with it on off campuses because of their database crimes, roles with other people's names, influence now to acting online so they can pretend to believe that with investigators. Whole bunch of people tied to Justin Levinskis with military families, criminally foreign influence involved identity theft crimes, with people with cliques on off campuses, on off religious locations, community centers, people involved with various natures of courts, involved with intercampuses crimes, even medical campuses and fire campuses, intercities through time, recorded uses of standing what can't defend itself as treatments of positive and also at the same time. Treatments of debate that are offensively recorded breaching method roles, because then you defend that. See how Mitt Romney and President Obama basically the whole time they talked about sanctions, which is about organized crime, value treatments, which is inseparable from how originally and still it was maintained, blamed on other things, others themselves. The real cause, it was self-value. The real causes of the breaching organized crime method roles with color, with the exploitations of it now that demonstrated, used by an organized crime method originally and still effectively active. It's recorded active every time someone opens their mouth formal. States and areas are liars, fake news. It's not personal. I'm trying to heal you guys. The New York game is trying to heal you guys. You guys are offensively pretending people are incapable of hearing the truth because they get too angry. At the same time, where you're offensively keeping that the outcome with as how facilitated to it. This knew that was going to keep high predators valuing the real causes of intercampuses where they have people stacking in New York City blamed on other things others themselves. This to the maintenance of people hating, because no one cared for them, blaming the wrong things. They need those colored things. They need offensively that not like demonstrated by having people pretending to be to perceive racism and prejudice, People's perceptions are recorded influenced by criminally foreign influenced sciences. As criminally foreign influence, quality of fact treatment, nature, premise treatment, sequence treatment, treatment of the value of other people's identities, treatment of the means really inherent to us regarding how to counter how to afford to counter this, which is not through fake capitalism, which is recorded standing, which is not through fake communism, which is fake size, just like with ISIS. That's why they have the suits and ties. They're in collusion with psychology. That's why no one defends the first part of the Quran, using the back part of it first, out of the sequence, not by accident. The whole thing is up front. No one will let it value. The Quran itself says the person not to pray in the mosque like that. These are standing criminal insidious nature roles with stage scenarios. Physical delusions juxtaposed. They pretend, oh, it's this sensibility. The same people that are saying, oh, I need the religion. When it comes down to it, free speech. We shouldn't have to beg these people that will not defend this conversation where we're in now. We have these locations used criminally by the people that attend them. Enter one. They're with titles, the ones with titles. But it's also through how those titles are victim predators for what keeps that the outcome. This is how the on-off locations, this is the identity of locations that maintains each age effect treatment nature, acting method, self-valued roles. So we have recorded Facebook involved through administrations with child crimes, identity theft rackets, criminal uses by the campus stewards of the police to keep them defending roles with that. See, this is where we have police forms individually grouped and together as the executive branch criminally involved with police forms interbranch and with private juxtaposed. Also with a whole bunch of nations shared policing and negotiated with worse than terrorism, identity of the ground, relationship to fact, treatment, nature, value, self-valued. So, say USC 813, they're all fakes. Now CT breaks. This native way of pure alone. It's not the physical value of the Native Americans that's going to give it voice. It's all that recorded that everyone's forced to ignore for time because there's so much we don't have control over. But this is a crime method that knows is leveraging that over what we do have control over. And it is measuring, worse than measuring and exploiting, how even though we have control over it, it demonstrates to individuals, to groups, and together how they're going to steal your identity. So we have to have allowed mandated law to demonstrate the sequence shifts in the physical delusions intersciences. And they need to keep fights between people while they need to lie in the background and plot more. Criminally use cases and create cases with more people against who's standing while they're still trying and incapable of it when they're not in courts. When Wade reports. These are crimes against innocence. Forced to conform to rules. They made them value shock and awe. Because then devaluing that, you can't counter the nature and the method of criminal insidious nature that originally was forced not to be spoken about by our founders, or they would have lost. They would have revealed their roles to the maintenance of a forward inside retreat. with no free speech, just a prayer and a Declaration of Independence. They knew. They prayed to God, though. We would demonstrate was not their wanted theater demonstrate the explanation of itself. We have theater takes on the Declaration of Independence, on its value. We have passions offensively only let heard voice with the value of the Declaration of Independence because of their how they're keeping Matt Marbury versus Madison used as not understood. They're pretending that they believe it means fake the revolution won because it wasn't won. Everyone just went for jobs of law. Everyone just went jobs of title. Everyone will value nature. Some forget. In other words, they owe me time. And then what they want to say, oh, you didn't do this. There are natures of industries originally instilled that are more than worthless. You can't defend them and also at the same time. That's valued per what is keeping the real causes of negative value nature progression acts and natures valued by all the people who just say that there's nothing we can do, and then they exploit where there is something they can do, which is respond for when someone asks to respond for in response to the mandated laws value not demonstrated. This is an identity theft, not just against me. This is exploiting time relationships to databases. This is using our identity, the grounds relationship to our fact-checking nature. There's also a Mario Pinhole. God bless him. I never met him. I never met him. John Mayano, I didn't understand the depth of it. Since I was a kid, people have been demonstrating. This is one way I can explain through liars, pretending other people. Because these are people involved with identity of the grounds, relationship to fact treatments, and time treatments. Their identity, their natures of identity theft clicks, database crime clicks that are off campuses maintained through time with their family members. Now, see, these are people further on and off the locations, on and off Stop and Shop, Town Line Drive, involved with a whole bunch of people further involved with retired and standing principals involved with child offenders, criminal uses of FBI, from the former director of the FBI down and up, at the same time, distinctly and non-distinctly sickly, and other agencies like the CIA. I never had a conversation with him. He faked conversations with me, a Leahy family, with medical, a whole bunch of people with Hartford Hospital through time, involved crime methods with courts and with police forms, recorded and confessed. They force people for mental evaluation, and then they criminally pretend things into databases, forging names, switching names. They're consciously criminally against the surface values of the Constitution, like the right to remain innocent, because they're involved with identity thefts. They're involved with intercampuses crimes, keeping each age settled over with time treatments of value treatments, fact treatments. You can't defend it else at the same time. They're saying, oh, who works hard? They don't need a lot of work to learn. See, the people that are having work hard and stuff like that, it's all right to have them reward them for that, but don't reward them by stealing the identities of people, especially whereas and how they have more integrity with them, whereas how it counts. See, that maintains a whole bunch of people shared fake styles of people sharing how they valuing identity just because they have a job, just because they have a title that's valued, in narratives. Those narratives are originally instilled criminally foreign influence and the delusions wrought in many contexts of fact treatment, not by accident. Fact treatment nature. So this is where we have to discern, because this is where and how it's one way as criminal insidious nature and is one way not. This is a conversation about nature because nature is the identity of a nature is an identity of a relationship to itself. That is the science of what's going to not only cause positive value nature progressions or not, it's going to cause health and life or not, thriving. We have other than that value because of our relationship to nature, our relationship to means. That's not freedom just because it's competition. Those are breaching front rows, fake sides, breaching screens. Competition that, not by accident, is defending itself, can't defend itself, and allow correlation nature to demonstrate the tactically denature relationship to nature. It means. And all the exploitations of exceptions with the convictions regarding the market's positions. The best plays out. Free market. It's not true. So we're gonna we put it in. We make this the revelations of this as industry. We put reliefs on actual medicine as a value nature system for that, because the one that those people are tied to now is criminally foreign influenced and uses of their time treatments of fact treatment nature value, keeping them knaves. In relationship to every fact treatment, originally and still. Free speech. Religion thrill, don't kill. All rise. So we need federal stewardships of Connecticut right now as a way that will be interstates. We're going to take over the opinion nature because they're recorded and capable of holding an election with the criminal uses of the FBI. For example, with their uses of the database clicks like the media, with their uses of fake morality, pretending to be against those parents with their narratives in the news. Because this is how they have those people maintained on and off campuses, facilitated a whole bunch of people associated with the Zano family on off locations of WFSB, Fox Connecticut News, intercities, interstates, worse through time. Crime Act rules maintain this outcome for how they have a whole bunch of nations policing shared and overt criminal enterprises, private one originally and still, in a method keeping each person needed to keep each age of fact, keeping each valued, already have been affected, identity thefts against each individual group and together and or roles with it. This is what keeps it so overt. Right on and off Hartford Hospital, police forms through time associated, even in private ones, foreign and domestic, associated on and off Hartford Hospital with the houses and locations, the uses of the zoning laws, the values of that. There are people associated with crimes there that have lie progressions, use of child defenders, use of various natures of court that spread lies about people with fake news. Then they cover up their lie progressions through games with kids, with foreign and domestic, using things like pretending they're just about games with Santeria and intercultural cliques. These are involved with Sammy Vega with private police forms, foreign and domestic, with CCSU, criminal justice schools, on and off Trinity College. Crime rolls with many people from my town intercities, and with already in cases. Those are roles facilitated per their evidence reception in the background. And that's confessed, recorded, and demonstrated leading up to the Trade Center attack in the context of it and since. And with investigations of that, and investigators of that, predicate acts like mail crimes, wire crimes, whole bunch of private with the Weathersfield Police crime methods recorded. Forging names, switching names, pretending to make mistakes on things, pretending not to perceive evidences, not pretending to be just defending other colleagues naturally. It's not like that. They're forging names, switching names, crime acts rolls with other police forms already through time. Other already crimes with elections, crime methods with it. Whole bunch of people with forensics clicks criminally involved with a Gold family. Whole bunch of people with a Charlie. I mean, with a Paul. No, what's his name? Phil Cololo is involved with database crimes and identity thefts and narratives in the past, drug crime roles. I never had a class with him. I never had a conversation with him. I explained the one time they tried to pretend other. He's got crime acts rolled on off Weathersfield High School, on off the Saulstein Middle School, further involved with child sex offenders. Once proven and further criminally involved with them. Their family members of one of them further involved with child sex offenders. Police forms in the courts are involved, and the doctors with the sex offenders proven further involved with crimes with them before they got caught. Not to catch them, they just got caught by accident where they were criminally acting together, preventing this from being reported. That has to do with what they were using the people with the managers and police forms on and off Stop and Shops Intercities, and with the ones and with the one on Town Line Drive, with a former police chief, I mean, a former principal of the same school, who has a daughter at the school that was recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by people tied to her, having been demonstrated, facilitated the crime acts roles with them, also with the media, with a fake, with a community meeting. They used Governor Malloy and recorded people associated with him with various natures of police forms with other cities involved criminally, not just that one city. That's per crime methods that you do to keep the trail and means to hide it, where they keep states and areas criminally foreign influence. The congressional buildings criminally involved, people associated with that. People associated with programs tied to the courts criminally involved with the child sex offenders and judges retired and standing further, not just sexual, medical, other natures of child abuse, identity thefts, attaching kids to fake locations, fake ties to others, maintaining people's sequence shift roles, line progression roles, intercampuses, per methods missed but recorded. See, we have to have mandated law followed. This is inside positive. This is very strong. They're recorded using commercials with medical information. I mean, with medical, they're pretending that they're not supposed to speak medical information because they're forging names, switching names, making things up. Crime acts roles and cases, criminal uses of misprision titles of that, like FBI itself, was used criminally when they, from the transition from ACA to RICO, was used criminally with how the transition from them with no FBI in the back of the coat to it on it, with their crime acts roles with Connecticut interbranch, private tied to them. A whole bunch of police forms associated with this Cololo family, with a whole bunch of natures of federal crimes facilitated as victims by the courts that use them criminally. A Bob Chase recorded, confessed with a whole bunch of other people. These are people crime acts rolled with a former Mayor Gold, also recorded and confessed involved crimes with the forensics clicks through time. These are also people crimes with state police, with and a whole bunch of people associated with various nature courts criminally involved, with 3 places and police forms criminally involved, foreign and domestic, at the end of the Burlington Turnpike. Involved with Dr. Shub, has of modern languages, has his wife involved with probate court, with a probate court judges retired and standing with their family members, used for crime methods that are keeping, like Paul Kelly, other people involved with the intercampuses crimes, people with private schools involved with identity thefts, crimes where they're using the grouped progression that is lied into and maintain sensibilities, criminal and serious nature. See, not only to all these topics in the news have ties, but they have ties to a ground line from the corner of Church Street, for example, right around the corner of it, which is right where George Washington had to come. Old Town Cafe recorded confessed involved with this. Washington, D.C. Trade Center clicks. Crime acts rolls with a whole bunch of other nations, maintaining this outcome. On and off CCSU through time. On and off interages of campuses through time. On and off criminal uses of Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts. Who's going to meet where, when, how, with their reaction. They're using each age of fact treatment nature criminally, each position of time treatment criminally. Same ones with the children further criminally involved are the ones further criminally involved with the elderly homes at the same time, with their value treatments and dispute resolution systems recorded criminally involved with the processes here. So we mandated law. One thing that everyone demonstrated, recorded, confessed, is they're involved with identity thefts. They don't realize that's what they're communicating when they pretend to be about the gang or the union. They're pro-union. They want to know about identity because its course is stolen long. They worse than told you wrong when they have people with the campuses involved with evidence perception, theories, what they call scientific. See, that's a fact treatment nature racket roll conformity method. Maintain self-value. Everyone's just worried about positions of their time in relationship to a value treatment system. So when it comes time for integrity to have voice, no one cares when they won't let it have voice. What do? Offensively pretend because people don't have jobs. These are worse than extortion. They're preventing us from defending ourselves from identity thefts. The whole time, they're preventing us from demonstrating criminal use as formal of everything. Same people pretending misprision to be about against dictators are evidence racket rolls, identity theft racket rolls, identity of the ground racket rolls, of the ground's value racket rolls. That's us. Value rolls, lethal IDs, call through your souls. The news is way worse because they're fighting and how they fight in the background, spreading lies worse, making worse crimes. Their crimes with the policing of the with their uses of behavior in relationship to their interpretation of stuff online. They're offensively pretending to be against certain types of behavior. They're recording this because then they're using that criminally to prevent actual serious sick crimes from being reported. These are criminal uses of serial killers, body dumping spots through time, associated with Enzo Faenza, a whole bunch of interbranch people associated with him, a whole bunch of natures of processing crimes, crime rolls, letting and facilitating into databases, sick lies, uses of interbranch clicks, real bad, real sick fakes. They need to pretend because things like prejudice. They don't like this person because of the prejudice. They don't like they're fake haters. The same way the gangs are. These are victim predators. They're not letting religious rights defended. They're not letting logic's course be told. Now, drop the criminal and ceases. There are people associated with East Hartford locations also further involved many ways per what motivated them to their predicate acts on off CCSU and on off with the people further on off the child campuses on off New Park Avenue on Park Street on off the other end of that street. Those places through time are involved crimes with people on off shared policing of malls, shared policing of locations with the facades of businesses in conjunction with and as the pathology of infrastructure that our American history is really about having been used for the fact-cheating nature, torture, and theft, identity thefts of our founders. Our American history's value, history's values, history's value is stolen in our faces. That's valued by people in the background pretending they believe that Marbury versus Massey should mean pretend justice. Pretend not to realize that we have frustrated beasts as identities. Because they're all liars, calling other people liars, valuing identities that are worse than worthless. So we need free speech right now. We need the fake news down. Who's the Wethersfield mayor? Because these are also crime acts roles with a crime method that's forcing people to speak through others criminally, so they can keep everyone lost to how they recorded effectively stack the names of people, stack people's sensibilities in position to bind until they just say whatever and they agree, oh, don't listen to him, don't listen to her. These are people real bad with the kids. That's why they have women judges, crime acts roles with sequence shifting with child sex offenders, using states' attorneys to hide their crime acts roles leading up to and in a 2006 district court case. New Britain judges and prosecutors involved with people on and off the state judicial branch offices, intercities from my town, intercampuses through time. They had a Rick Shamfayone pretend. One time I went downtown, they made it pretend like look like I had communications with him about to show up somewhere and to know who I was communicating with. In other words, they have people act like to girls and stuff like it, and then they go back and talk with other girls. They pretend they know me. I don't even know them. I had no conversation with these people. See, these are people involved with New Britain Superior Court through time, also intercities, Wethersfield, Rocky Hill, New Britain, Newington, East Hartford, Glastonbury, all connected. Criminal uses of them. Everyone speaking through others, criminal uses of that. Database crime rules. Then, they're recorded how kept needing to hide progressions, needing to hide their actually recorded natures. Uses of the identity of the ground. I'll gather around. This is news. I'm not a journalist. I don't want to be a journalist. I want to use my free speech. I want to have my free speech and my identity not stolen. I want to have punk tricks, fact-cheating rackets, forging names and switching names in the background responded to. Some people with that corner house next to where George Washington, that corner house, associated with people with medical corruption, associated with the English department, with other natures of crimes, with overt criminal enterprises, with people are facilitated to it because everyone's speaking through other people. There's a and this is criminal uses of Cohen, of a guy with the name Cohen, influenced to wire crime roles, crimes with judges, with sequence shifts with them, predicate acts with mail crimes clicks. There are crimes with untimely deaths on and off campuses used for other natures of crimes, real estate crimes, crimes with a whole bunch of people associated with a Dillon family, and with a Kevin Dillon, and with a Sean Dillon, and with locations on and off Two Rod Highway associated with a Victorian house. I don't know the names of the people. There are further recorded crimes with a Phil Cololo and Mendez police and police forms with crimes in and out of New Britain Superior Court and of a forensics place involved with crimes with them with overt criminal enterprises, with body dumping spots, with fake news too. Different natures of fake news, crime acts through time. Two different narratives about the two different locations they gave for a body dumping, and that's with the person with WFS, the people, the men and women with WFSB, crimes with a Faenza, and on and off the state judicial branch offices with them. Crimes pretending to perceive things as investigators so they could hide their roles, knowing other was recorded before that in their sequence shifts. Their crime acts spreading lies with overt criminal enterprises and attaching victims of that to fake words and in fake news articles. They did that not just against me, against others. To how could you know what others said in the background? Because others recorded that they litigated, they communicated through litigation. See, if they hear something like they hear a truth, like someone raised their lie, their voice, they attach lies to it. They hide, they lie about what came before it, and then they do that with others too. Then they even attach you to fake communications with them. They're preventing people from calmly defending ourselves. See, then they have a commercial with Shaquille O'Neal, big Shaquille O'Neal, and an old lady next to him telling people how to speak up for themselves. So people have the illusion that someone's standing up for us. We have free speech. We don't have free speech. We have sick fakes interbranch recorded through time. And how this has kept the outcome is recorded how the overt criminal enterprises are tools of interbranch and of all private tied to them. They're also recorded consciously, criminally pretending people have conspiracy theories. They're also consciously recorded criminally um, using people calling in things fake, sustaining harassment of people. They're also recorded attaching people to fake words and what there are judges involved with the harassment of each age, male and female judges per their needs to hide lie progressions, per their value treatments. That's recorded. They can't pretend other, but without using the standing identities of the ground of the positions criminally, and that's what they do. So we have to have another nature of statutes liberated, and we have to have another nature of industry revealed, beginning with that and how we have to put it on jobs that are critical first, because the value nature they're in the system now, we're gonna grip a lot of that is pseudo medical. It is self defeating. It's roles with what's causing more needs for money than more hurt than it is health, and it's way worse. We must all rehearse. So we have a bunch of fakes recorded consciously, interbranch, various natures of courts, and they're using what everyone missed, but I can show you, share my experience with you that is actually recorded. And then we're going to see how these Mendez police and how the Main brothers and how Thaddeus Grabowski and how people with I don't remember their name, but there are women police forms also involved with on off Fox Connecticut News and with the owners of club buildings in downtown Hartford involved with identity thefts, crimes with the FBI, with the CIA, and with foreign overt criminal enterprises and other nations policing, and roles with crimes with areas tied to what is maintained manifest by their value treatments of relationship to what is positive. I mean private. Their value treatments of what is positive with in relationship to medical drugs, medicine value treatments, also involved with crimes with the sensibilities of the networks used, involved recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved database crimes, identity theft racket roles. They're using drugs associated with schizophrenia and things like that, recorded, forging names, switching names, faking conversations, with and as people recorded crimes with areas and with how with locations on that corner, that whole street, houses on the street, and that but the house in the corner, and then all the way around the corner near the Webb House, then straight up that road, Wells Road, up to the big hill near the Samuel Dix house, Little Red Schoolhouse, houses around there. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, criminally involved with this, with various natures of courts, criminally involved with this Leahy family, with foreign and domestic military involved with various natures of crimes, including predicate acts like mail crimes, wire crimes, identity thefts, sick things, crime methods, pretending other through time originally and still. You can't defend that and tell our American history. And we're going to tell our American history now. And we're going to heal what they pretend is in value, blame the other things others themselves because they per uses of time, per how they keep everyone forced to it in the negative, forced valuing that. In other words, you have to step back. This is exploitation of all titles in each branch simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. And with all private and shared sick like that. That's really what keeps those people of that quality of fact treatment nature that's so sick that doesn't know how but to be hurtful, what they have in prison. See, those are the people in collusion with rackets they have sustained, criminal uses of like charity spots, specifically for criminal uses of the fact treatment nature, pseudo positive standing. They need them with each area, valuing identity or relationship to the ground. Uh, with fact treatment nature quality, you can't defend us from what exploits that, not by accident. This is we have means, one way redeems. Go through teams. So we have no election crimes real. We have the processes going forward anyway, because each position of fact treatment nature maintain criminally foreign influence per a method. Free speech and mandated law right here and now. Watch how powerful positive is, and watch how this voice is being exploited. And then you're going to see people stand. You're going to see how through time they have people identity of relationship to the ground, their identity stolen, and they're getting mad in context where they should get mad. Already, they're using that to attach people to getting mad in different locations. They're lying about what makes those people mad. What all that was involved, what really brought those people into triage places for mental evaluation, for example. The recorded confessed demonstrated using the judges associated with that, using the experts associated with that to hide their crimes with the worst natures of criminals with the area. Recorded. These are people with the need that are valuing foreign and domestic countries with conspiracy theories offensively that with experts that you can't defend that and themselves at the same time because they are, with physical delusions. There are crime fact treatment nature record rolls through with areas, with cases already, with setting up juries, with pretending they have integrity as courts and interbranch. Before that's how they maintain victims. That's how you have to counter them here with the uses of the other ages of each age of campuses, intercity, recorded, connected, how connected. A whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of police forms are recorded and confessed involved with the judges retired and standing with the Scalora family. These are with the people with the uses of all that private and interbranch criminally evolved here. Now, see, we're going to have to deal with this hyper volume theory and get who pretends this is not real. I want their name because they're forging names and switching names. And I'm going to show you how I can force them to take a position where they're not because they know that they can use identities of the ground criminally in sustained ways and get away with it. And so they're doing that and have been doing that. And this is really what's keeping the shootings blamed on other things, others themselves, and self-value that way with the areas with the shootings. It's recorded, got in minds. That's one thing. So only to the extent of it is debatable.